Okay, so today I have a very special guest all the way from China. Galina, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. So today we're going to talk a little bit about you, about your work life and your plan B, basically, project that you're working on right now. And you're going to give us a little bit of an introduction and also something that you do on a very, very regular basis, basically is reaching out to different people, different leaders in completely different companies and different industries and areas all the time. And you build very, very good relationships with those people. So I'd like to dive in a little bit more about that because I think the people going to listen to that interview and to that video going to have a lot of value based on your insights and your inputs there. So tell us a little bit about yourself, about what you do in your day job, and about the plan B that you're working
Yeah,
on.
sure. Thank you, Daniel. So, I'm originally from Moscow, Russia, and I about 4 years ago I came to China, and I have a job in a real estate company here, and I work as a translator. And I've also been busy with a project, inspiration and resources for immigrant women. And I started doing interviews for many reasons. I interview women immigrants, social activists, um, leaders of nonprofits, CEOs of nonprofits, and social entrepreneurs who
Mm-hmm.
are somehow involved in the lives of communities, of immigrant communities. So,
Okay.
uh, why I started doing interviews? For me, it's one of the best ways to connect to somebody and provide value to them at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just for me. It's for everybody else to watch, and they share so much information, very useful information for everybody. And in the beginning, I didn't really do video interviews. I didn't even have a website at that point, and so I was using Behance. It's a portfolio kind of website that is integrated into LinkedIn. So I
Mm-hmm.
did written interviews there, and somehow people even agreed to do that. Even though
Excellent.
it's not a super popular software, place.
Mm-hmm.
So I took it very slowly, and yeah, so that's how it started.
Okay, okay. So this is something you do on the side next to your day job, basically.
Yes.
And so, what kinds of people or what types of people reach out to? Or what career level are they? What type of industries? I mean, you mentioned it quickly, but it would be great if you could go into a bit more details.
Sure, sure. So, first of all, before I started reaching out to them, I kind of figured out that I had three different fields that I was interested in. So, first, it's a psychological support and professional support of immigrant women. Then I was very interested in how communities are built. Communities of
Mm-hmm.
immigrants are built. And the third one is just CEOs and social entrepreneurs who work with these communities in somehow. They also do a lot of work abroad, in Africa, in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
So based on that, I started reaching out to women, and because I prefer to reach out to women. It was really important for me to reach out to people who with similar values. I didn't really figure it out in the beginning, so I would just reach out to everybody. And now I'm very selective. I'm trying to be not because somebody is not as good as somebody else, but it's just it's important um, to reach out to people who are like you, who you want to be friends with, who you are like seeing yourself in the future with, doing a project together or something like that.
Yeah, people like who have similar or shared values, people with similar interests, maybe a shared passion. It also makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of research do you do about these people? Or, I mean, generally, where do you find, where does somebody find people who shares their values and interests and passion? How do you find these people to reach out to?
Yeah, that's a great point. Because not everybody, like corporate companies don't really have that much personality. So I really prefer um, looking for people, or brands that are very unique, and they are like one person,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they have their values on the website. They write about it. They have interesting blog posts that I read blog posts before I reach out to them as well,
Hmm.
or some sort of like free resources that they have, maybe a free ebook or free videos, stuff like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I also,
So
yeah,
so it tends to be smaller, sorry, smaller companies and sort of startup companies, um, or self-employed people, things like that, people like that, right?
yes, yes, absolutely. And it's actually easier to connect
Hmm.
to them, on a personal level, and yeah, and just talk about something, and it's easier. It's easier for them to find time to do interviews with you,
Hmm.
and especially if they are starting out, and if they're starting out a new project, or if they're launching a new application. So I know that a lot of your readers, they
Hmm.
come from
Yeah.
IT. So if they would like to reach out to somebody from their field, the
Hmm.
perfect
Hmm.
timing would be when the company or a small team, they're looking for coverage or media coverage. So if you can
Yeah.
offer to them, if you can say, well, I'm going to share this interview with everybody I know, they would really appreciate that.
Yeah, maybe with the LinkedIn connections, or if they have a blog, with their blog, of course. But I think with the LinkedIn connections and Twitter following, and all of those people on the social networks, and I think that's a fantastic point you make here. Especially, I always talk about the change in the market that is happening, and changes, of course, include these product launches and project launches, new applications, anything basically that has a change, and that changes something, and then you have a much easier way to reach out and do such an interview. I think that's a fantastic point.
Yeah, yeah, it helped me a lot.
Very, very good. Okay, so how important do you see the research that you do? How important do you see that in terms of how you can reach out to the people then?
You know, well, first of all, they're very pleasantly surprised if I ask them very specific questions. And so it means that I read their blog posts, at least a few of them, and when they see something like that, they really appreciate that. And that's how actually one of my interviewees, even she was so impressed with my work in terms of research and other things, and then she said, oh my god, as if I have an opportunity to hire you, I would absolutely contact you. So it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
really nice to hear a comment like that.
That's a fantastic point you make there. You mentioned that story of this girl that you just mentioned to me before, that basically offered you a job through the reaching out that you did, and she saw that you actually are a very professional person, and see that you do things with a passion and with a lot of interest, and that you do in-depth research when you reach out to people. So she realized that you can talk very, very well with people, and build relationships. And I think that's some incredibly important skill these days, which is completely independent from any industry. I believe everybody these days needs to be able to build strong relationships in their career, outside of their career, to get to the top, or just merely to survive, really. So I think that's a fantastic point you make there, and it's a great story, and it's a great, it's just a great story that you just mentioned.
Well, thank you, Daniel. Thank you.
So where do you usually start with your research, and what tools do you use to do that?
Well, basically, yeah, I Google and I just keywords are so important, So you try different keywords. So if you're interested in something in particular, just try like tweak the keywords, and that's how you find companies and people, and just on LinkedIn as well.
Okay.
So, or you can join groups on LinkedIn and just scan the profiles and see who's doing what and just check their websites. So it's basically Googling. And also another way, a few interviewees of mine actually referred other people to me. So it was
Mm-hmm.
really helpful, and that's something I really recommend for somebody for your audience to do. Because when
Mm-hmm.
somebody introduces you to this new person, um, there's a trust there as
Absolutely,
well.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think this is very, very important, and I always talk about referrals and introductions a lot on my blog and in all my coachings. And I think it's one of the most important parts of building relationships, because it establishes trust really fast, and you can kind of it's basically a shortcut to building relationship faster if you can get an introduction or referral. And I think reaching out to people with an interview is a great way, because you provide a huge value for them, because people love to talk about their opinion and their company and their products and things like that. And they love it even more if something like that is public. At least most people do, and therefore that's a fantastic way to get introductions and referrals, because these people can see that you provide a lot of value, and usually people want their network to get the value as well. So that's a really, really good point there.
Yeah, and it's also a great way to expose yourself to new audience,
Mm-hmm.
because usually my interviewees, they share these interviews with their audience, and
Yep.
yeah, and if you do something sweet like a good introduction on the video, maybe something beautiful there, nice editing, and link to their websites, of course. Uh, they really appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
And they can also use
So
it at on their website. If they don't, sometimes they don't have time to produce video content, and if you were just like if you just contact them and say, I will do everything, I'll be in charge of everything, you just need to show up and spend 30 minutes talking to me and nothing else, no editing, um, you know no posting and uploading, which is a lot of work.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's something that people really appreciate as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what do you usually put into your message? So, what elements do you use? Do you use a template, or what types of information do you use in the message, and how do you craft that?
Okay, so that's a great question, because there's a lot of research involved in that. So when I contact somebody, I show that it's not just a template, I've read about them, and I compliment them on something, and I feel like in order to compliment somebody, you really need to like them. So that's why it's
Hmm.
important to, find the right people that you genuinely like. So
Yeah.
yeah, so in a couple of sentences, I show that I've done my research about them and how I think that aligns with my work, and how we could do
Hmm.
something together. And I also, like in the beginning, I didn't really have any extra links, for them. But now I always mention previous interviews that I have done. So if this person, for example, with your audience, if they're in IT, right, and they say, okay, so I do interviews with IT executives who produce apps, who develop apps for kids, for example. And here is the list of the previous interviews that I've done with these people. So they can tell that you're actually working on this and you're serious
Absolutely,
about
yes.
it. And they can check a few interviews or an interview that sounds more interesting to them. So, and it's also a great way for you to kind of spread the word about your content.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. I mean, you can usually, you can do that in any industry more or less. You can do that in finance, in law, you can do that in business development, really anything. And of course, it's important to focus on one thing, but that's what people should do anyway when they head for a career, right? They're not looking in 100 different directions. They need to focus on one specific way to go and focus and interview people like that. And I think that's a great point. After a couple of interviews, then you can include the interviews that you did before, and that also inspires other people or the people that you reach out to. It also inspires them to make that step and take the interview with you and talk about their points. So that's very, very good. So how many interviews do you do usually in a month?
So about 3 to 4 interviews per month. So sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
just go crazy and do like 3 or 4 interviews per week, and then for a couple of weeks, and then I need time to recharge, because the research takes a lot of time, and
Yeah,
that's the most important thing. And also writing questions. It's you cannot just ask questions that you can Google, right?
exactly. Yes. Good point. Very good point.
And so just try to be very specific, and they will like it. And sometimes the interviewees ask me to send them sample questions, and I do that for them. So
Can you give me 2 or 3 examples of questions that you would ask somebody, or that you ask somebody where you reach out to?
there are some common questions that you can ask. So you can ask anybody, how did you start this project? Who was your first client? Who were your first supporters? What were the challenges? And how did you find solutions? What were the creative solutions? So basically, and the plans for the future,
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. I think these are great questions. I mean, you can use them in any context when there's a change happening, when there's a new project, a new product, or basically anything that's happening that is changing something. I think these questions are fantastic, and you can always or almost always use the same questions with slight changes and get some great answers, I believe.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very good. What would you say are the main keys that people should think about before and when they reach out to people they don't know?
Well, if somebody can introduce you to this person,
Mm-hmm.
that would be perfect, of
Mm-hmm.
course. But also, you can go to their website if they have a blog, and post a couple of comments, and some very insightful comments. That
Mm-hmm.
would be the one thing. Is that it doesn't really take. It takes a lot of time, to kind of build this relationship, and especially if a person is, a very successful entrepreneur or something like that, and.
Mm-hmm.
But usually, one thing I noticed was that even people like successful people like that, very famous in their field, even they reply to their emails, and they will, when you try to contact somebody on LinkedIn and you send a request, um, try to use a personal message there, you know. So
Absolutely, yes.
that would be a great, start as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can even do the same thing on LinkedIn. When somebody's active there, they don't necessarily need a blog, but they can have LinkedIn updates, comments when they change something on the profile. There's always an update created, and you can comment on that, you can like that, you can interact with them in so many different channels. And if they, of course, have a blog or website, even better. It's even a much better tool to use. And you can do the same thing on LinkedIn. Very, very good. Excellent.
Yeah, and also when you write an email, just make sure that the title is appealing to the person,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so it has
Yeah.
to have some benefit for them.
Yeah.
So just try to figure out. So one of the reasons why research is so important is because you try to figure out what's valuable, what would be valuable to this person, and you try to offer it to them.
Very good point. Yeah, absolutely. Very good point. And I think these days you can do so much online. You can do so much research, and it doesn't only have to be online. I mean, you can even go on LinkedIn, for example, and check if this person knows somebody in your network as a first or second level degree contact, and you have a reach. I mean, only on LinkedIn to so many different people, and many. I'm always surprised how many people I sort of know through my network, or I can reach out through my network just through an introduction or something like that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Very
and
good.
also keep your email short, short and sweet, and just don't take too much time on,
I think this is such an amazingly great point. I get so many emails every day and LinkedIn messages, and I tend to, I mean, especially first, only reply to those who make it very short to the point. And then it usually takes a long time for me to get back to other people who just write to me a page of just words and a lot of, sentences around the topic and explaining plenty of things that they don't necessarily need to explain because it's not something they need to write in the first message. So
yeah.
it's something that belongs in a later message.
Okay, yeah. So just three
Excellent.
paragraphs would be fine. Three paragraphs
Absolutely.
with like,
Exactly.
a couple of
Exactly.
sentences each.
Exactly, absolutely. Very, very good. So, what would you recommend to somebody who is looking for a new looking for a new career challenge, new job, and they want to reach out to people outside of the network with a tool like you use, for example, like interviewing?
Well, interviewing is a great tool, I think, to build your connections, to build a network, to show that you're serious about what you're doing. So, but I don't think you can really use it immediately as a job search tool. So
Very, very
it
good point. Yes.
it will take time, um,
Yeah.
but I think you know I love doing that because this topic is just really important for me. It took me a while to find this topic for myself that I would be so interested in, but after
Hmm.
I did, it's just smooth, and I love doing it. It's very
Okay.
challenging, but the I don't think that you can wait for the immediate results, for tomorrow, or next week.
Exactly, and I think that's the same with anything you do in personal branding and networking. People are always looking for the quick fix, but there is no quick fix.
Yes.
If something happens fast, it's usually because was generated before, or because of an introduction. In some case, because of luck. But usually it takes time, and I mean, I always advise my clients to calculate at least 3 to 6 months for the entire process.
Yes.
And yeah, yeah.
That's exactly what I heard. I've been very interested in Indiegogo recently. It's a crowdfunding platform
Hmm.
for anybody in the world, and I've read a blog post, and one of the guys just said, you know what, before you even start a project there, before you try to raise money, you have to be working on your network for at least 6 months
Yeah,
consistently.
yeah. Very good point. Yeah,
Yes, it
because
makes
it
total
creates
sense.
momentum. Because if you just go there, it's like if you start searching for a job and have neglected networking forever, and start networking now. In many cases, people start networking the wrong way. They just look out there and see who are potential hiring managers and contact them and ask them for a job. And in many cases, this is not successful. I mean, there's some people who are successful in that, but in most cases, that's not building relationships. That's really just selling, which is good as well. But it's not building relationships, because there is essentially no value created in such a communication. So absolutely, it always takes time and an effort and a lot of work. But I'm very very confident that um, doing interviews with leaders in your field, they don't necessarily have to be direct hiring managers. They can even be potential colleagues. Um, that it's an amazing tool, and then you can publish it on LinkedIn. You can publish it on your LinkedIn profile. Even you can include it there as a video. You can publish it on your blog or any on YouTube and just link to it. There are so many options that you can take, and it helps a lot with personal branding, of course, but also it's a very easy way to show what you can do, not just in terms of your job, your work, but what attitude you have, what your view of the world is, what values you stand for, and things like that. And I think these interviews, they really show that attitude, not just in the things that you talk about, but actually also in showing that you actually take action and do something. And I always think about myself, if when I'm hiring, who would I hire out there? Would I hire just somebody who has a resume and shows me what they did in a written text format, or would I hire somebody who can show me something they did, like an interview? Or I mean, in the graphics world, for example, of course, these are graphics or an object or anything, but it's very difficult for people who are in office jobs, so to say, to show anything except for the accomplishment lines on the CV. And I think there, an interview is something amazing, or plenty of interviews are something amazing to show for, something that shows your attitude, your values, your opinion, your view of the world, your knowledge, and anything. I mean, you can even do interviews with people and talk about industry trends. It doesn't always have to be an interview, a one-way interview. It can be a communication. It can be a discussion. It can even be a completely two-way communication about industry trends and something like that. But I think it creates an amazing value and a lot of awareness.
Yeah, I mean, even a 2-minute video can make a difference, you know. So I've been very inspired by this nonprofit, La Cocina, that helps immigrant women to start their food companies, you know. So I found 21 immigrant women on their website and just did this 2-minute video of basically just slides of their websites.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sent it to the executive director. And he was like, "Oh my God, thank you so much." You know, so they can, I've looked through my what do you call it, like the rating and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of like higher than any other post at that time. So basically, it meant that he really shared it, you know, and he really liked it, and
Wow.
yeah, so I also did an interview with him. So these two videos were like rated pretty high as well. So and you know, you basically they're a nonprofit. You know, they probably don't have that much time to do stuff like that. You know, and so if you can do something similar, you know, maybe a tutorial for somebody's app, you know, or introduction, that's really great as well.
Absolutely. I actually just got thinking about a guy. I can't recall his name. The application Evernote.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So there was this guy who created this PDF, basically an ebook. It's called Evernote Essentials, and he more or less just did it as a side project because he was passionate about
Yeah.
the app, and he created it and started to sell it. And Evernote contacted him, and he was very scared that they would sue him for using their name.
Yeah.
But what actually happened is he made an incredible amount of money from it. Plus, they wanted to hire him and have him on board. And actually, in a very, very interesting position, very well paid and everything, because he showed them not just by talking about it and sending in a CV, but he actually showed them what he can do. Even if he didn't want to show it in the beginning, eventually it went in that direction. And I just thought about this when you talk about the app. I think it's a fantastic example.
Yeah, I love this as well. And one great thing about in the interviews is that you're not in the center of attention, so you don't really have to worry about that much. That, oh my God, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? And it's basically all the attention is on the person that you're interviewing, and it's great. You do a lot of like background work, like behind the scenes work. Uh, but also, it's easier to engage into video production that way. It's less
Absolutely, yes.
scary.
Much. Absolutely. Very, very good point.
When there are two people on the screen, basically, it attracts a lot more attention than if it's
Yeah.
just one person. So it's
Absolutely,
great for
yes.
everybody.
Absolutely. It's very absolutely, it creates a lot of value for everybody in the game, and not just for both of them, but for plenty of more people who watch it. Very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the tagline of my business is career excellence through relationships. What does that mean for you personally?
Well, I've always wanted to be friends with people that I work with, and I just and my bosses, and it's I thought it was a little bit idealistic, but now I realize that it's absolutely possible, and you can basically build uh, your work yourself. So I think it's important because you can create a perfect situation for yourself, but you just need to figure out who are these amazing people that you want to work with. What are their qualities? What are their accomplishments? Who are the people that you would like to learn from? And get inspired by. So also, you know, I love the idea of working with people who are a lot smarter than you in different ways. And you don't need to feel kind of not confident about that and kind of like feeling that you're not as smart or as accomplished. So actually putting yourself in a place like that, it will just help you grow and evolve much faster. So that's why
Absolutely.
it's so important for me to think that,
Excellent.
yeah,
That's one more such awesome point you make there, and I think that which also helps, which also interviews can help a lot because I think through interviews you're going to identify a lot of people who share similar values and interests. And
absolutely.
I mean, eventually, if you really want to be working on something and with a company that you are passionate about and that you love, you need to figure out what sorts of values they have and what sorts of interests they have, and because only if that matches you will be fulfilled at that company or working with people like that. And you're probably not going to do a lot of interviews with people who don't share similar values because they're probably not going anywhere.
Yeah, but also, it's important to see how people work. So if they reply faster your emails, do they show up on time for the interview, or like a lot of details. So that kind of like shows work ethic, and you start feeling who you would be comfortable working with. So if it's somebody who is just too, overwhelmed with things all the time, then you might not want to work with this person.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, absolutely. I just thought about myself in a situation where somebody would do an interview with me. For example, if I would be the owner of a, of a technology company, and if a business development executive, as an example, or a business development manager would reach out to me to do an interview, and we would do the interview, and I mean, automatically get to know him quite well during a 30 to 60 minute talk. Usually establish quite a good relationship through video and audio and everything. And I think the next time, like 3 or 6 months later, if I would need somebody in a position where they can grow my business, then I would anyway need somebody that aligns with my values and shares the passion that I have. So I think that probably the first person that I would think about would be that person. So I think it's an amazing tool and way to build relationships, and it's sort of a lead generator as well.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Um, and then somehow you start figuring out that you have skills that you don't even realize you had. So for example, a few ladies asked me about the software, and stuff like that. And then so at some point you just become a go-to person, you know. So
yeah, absolutely,
it's a great way to build relationships as well, and just it's really pleasant to be of a help to somebody and be
absolutely.
appreciated for something like, wow, well, I have this talent and I didn't really realize that I had it. You kind of start learning about yourself a lot as well.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. And uh, one good point you made there again was the go-to person. Um, I think people always think they need to reach out to the perfect person who is able to hire them, but you can even do interviews with colleagues, with potential. I mean, with people at companies, for example. If you're fascinated about Google, why don't you interview 2 or 3 people at Google who are, in a sort of position where you would work together with them if you were working there, like peers and people like being on the same career level. Because if you do the interview with these people, you build amazing relationships, and they can also introduce you then to other people within the company. And I mean, I got an email 2 days ago from a contact of mine. She lived in New Zealand, and she got a job at Google basically from New Zealand. So she got a job at Google in Switzerland, and she did that all the way from New Zealand. She was never in Switzerland before, and now she's traveling there for the final offer and everything. And basically, the way she got the job was through 3 people she knew at Google, because everything made it so much easier. So I think it's also a fantastic way to build relationships with people on a similar level, not just to high level authorities. If this is not something you feel comfortable with.
I absolutely agree with you. First of all, I think that just top listers wherever in any field, it's just they're great and everything, but it's overrated. They actually manage people who make this happen. So
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are really underappreciated. Um, and also I found it a lot more pleasant to interview people who are um, not there yet, not there like on top of everything yet.
yeah,
So you can really build genuine relationships with them. And when you reach out to Bill Gates, I mean, obviously you want something from him, right? So
exactly. Yes, of course.
yeah.
Of
So
course, yes, and I think you have to think very, very long and hard how you can create value for somebody like Bill Gates. On the other hand, if you reach out to somebody on your level, or maybe just one level above you, or somebody's creating a new project or a new venture or anything, it's much easier because you create publicity for them, you create a
yes,
relationship,
yes.
and people can talk about their opinion, which they love, and that's already creating value. So that's a very good point. Excellent.
Yeah, so
So
I really prefer contacting people who I would love to see there, who I would just like, I believe in them so much and I believe in what they do 100%. And I just really want to spread the word about them and I want them to get there.
Yeah.
But also, I think now, and I haven't thought about that before, now with the Skype and phone calls, and especially with Skype, I guess it's easier to kind of schedule an interview and not necessarily, interview somebody, but present your idea maybe in a creative way,
Mm-hmm.
so do this sort of presentation, for your business.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. I think that's a good point there. You can also see the interview as a, I mean, even if you reach out to somebody who is on a similar level, maybe one step above you, there's always the potential that they would very much appreciate your feedback on their idea, on their new venture, on their new project, because you may have some very interesting experience that relates to that you would never find out if you don't talk to them.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you
Excellent.
will start working on a similar project, on the same project together.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. So, thank you very much for all these amazing insights from your side, Galina. It
Thank you,
was a
Daniel, for inviting
huge
me.
pleasure. It's a huge pleasure to having you here,
Same
and I'm sure
here.
my audience is going to have a lot of interest in listening to that talk, and hopefully provides a lot of value for them and
Yeah,
anybody who listens to it.
I hope your audience likes this interview, and I will share this template that I use uh, for my, to reach out to people, and hopefully it will be
Fantastic.
helpful for them.
Thank you so much. So I will publish the template below this video so people can find it on my website in the blog post. And so thank you very much for being here. Can you just
Thank you.
quickly mention once again where people can find you online, maybe just a website and a Twitter account or something like that?
Okay, so my website the tagline is Inspiration and Resources for Immigrant Women. So if you Google it, then it will be somewhere on top. But my website domain name is my name and surname, Galina Bilaeva. So
Mhm.
it's a little bit more difficult to, to share.
I'll post the link. I'll
Yeah.
post the link as well below the video.
Okay, cool, cool. Thank you,
Very, very
Daniel.
good. Excellent. It was great having you. Thank you so much. And hopefully we can do something similar again in the future.
Yes, me too. Yeah, I hope so too.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Galina. Take care.
You're welcome. Bye, Daniel.
Bye-bye.